over fields of green, remembering the faces, the moments unseen, the hands that built a dynasty, the vision in their eyes, echoes in the auction barn beneath an endless sky. This is the bullvine, turn the volume high, for the icons of the ages that never will die. From the show ring thunder to the quiet strength they knew, hear their stories now, coming right on through.
Welcome to the Bullvine Podcast, where the untold stories of dairy farming come to life. Today we're diving deep into one of the most controversial and consequential stories in agricultural history. This is a podcast for dairy farmers, by dairy farmers, and about the decisions that shape our industry. We don't just report the news, we live it, breathe it, and understand what it means when you're standing in a barn at 4 a.m., making choices that will echo through generations. Today's episode, Bell's Paradox, the worst best bull in Holstein history. Over the next 90 minutes, you'll experience the story of Carlin-M Ivanhoe Bell through the eyes of those who lived it. You'll stand in auction barns in 1971, feel the pressure of breeding decisions in the 1980s, and discover how one bull's genetics became both a blessing and a curse that still affects every Holstein cow milked today. This isn't just history, it's a warning, a lesson, and a mirror reflecting the choices we continue to make in pursuit of progress. So settle in, whether you're in your truck heading to check cows, in your office doing paperwork, or taking a rare moment of rest. This is your story, told your way. Let's begin.
You stand in your milking parlor at 4:47 a.m. on a Tuesday morning in late March 1999. The familiar rhythm of the vacuum pumps fills the pre-dawn darkness. Steam rises from the backs of your Holsteins as they file into their stalls. Everything seems normal, routine, safe. But in 12 minutes, your phone will ring. The veterinarian's voice on the other end will be careful, measured, the tone vets use when they're about to deliver news that changes everything. Your best cow, the one whose bloodline you've built your entire breeding program around for 15 years, has just lost another calf. Not to dystocia, not to infection, to something called complex vertebral malformation, a genetic defect you've never heard of, carried by a bull who's been dead for 9 years. That bull's name is Carlin-M Ivanhoe Bell. His frozen semen sits in tanks in nearly every AI facility in the world. His genetics flow through millions of Holstein cows across 6 continents. He revolutionized milk production, made fortunes for dairy farmers from Wisconsin to New Zealand, and fundamentally altered what it means to be a Holstein cow. He also carried 2 lethal genetic diseases that would kill countless calves, destroy breeding programs, and cost the global dairy industry hundreds of millions of dollars. You don't know it yet, standing here in your parlor with that phone about to ring, but you're about to discover that your entire herd, every cow you milk, every heifer you're raising, every calf in your hutches, carries the legacy of a Kansas bull whose story begins 28 years earlier, on a September morning in 1971, when everything that would lead to this moment started with a decision that seemed insignificant at the time. You reach for the receiver. To understand how you got here, you need to travel back to September 1971. You're standing in an auction barn in rural Oklahoma, but you're not really here. You're John Carlin, and you're doing a favor for a friend. The smell of cattle and sawdust fills your nostrils. Your boots stick slightly to the concrete floor, still damp from the morning hosing. Around you, other farmers lean against the metal rails, studying sale catalogs, making notes in margins. You didn't plan to buy anything today. You've driven down from Kansas with a cattle trailer you just picked up, planning only to read pedigrees for Bob Braswell's Band W dispersal sale. It's the kind of favor dairy farmers do for each other, time given freely because next month, next year, you might be the one needing help. But the dairy industry you're part of in 1971 stands at a crossroads, though you can't fully see it yet. The Holstein breed is changing rapidly. Production is becoming everything. The days of the family cow giving enough milk for local delivery routes are ending. Larger dairies are emerging. Bulk tanks are replacing milk cans. The economics are shifting beneath your feet like sand. You flip through the sale catalog one more time. Across the country, artificial insemination is revolutionizing dairy breeding. No longer do you need to keep a dangerous bull on your farm. Now, for the price of a tank of semen, you can access the genetics of the best bulls in the world. Companies like Select Sires, American Breeders Service, and Cemex are competing fiercely for the next great sire. The pressure is building throughout the industry. Milk prices haven't kept pace with rising costs. Feed prices fluctuate wildly. The government's price support system feels increasingly unstable. You need cows that can produce more milk on less feed, cows that can survive in larger herds with less individual attention, cows that can generate enough income to cover the loan payments that keep you awake at night. Standing here in 1971, you're also part of a larger agricultural transformation. Earl Butz has just become Secretary of Agriculture, preaching his gospel of get big or get out. Farms are consolidating. Your neighbors are either expanding or selling out. The 80-acre dairy that supported your grandfather's family won't support yours. You need 300 cows where he needed 30. You need production levels he couldn't have imagined. The Holstein breed itself is concentrating around a handful of influential sires. Round Oak Rag Apple Elevation, born just 6 years ago in 1965, is reshaping the breed with his incredible type transmission. Pawnee Farm Arlinda Chief, though long dead, still dominates pedigrees. These bulls and their sons are creating a genetic bottleneck that worries some geneticists but seems like progress to most farmers. You watch as the sale crew brings the first animal into the ring. It's an 11-month-old heifer. Banw Hilo Cremel. Something about her catches your eye. Maybe it's her straight top line, maybe it's the way she moves, or maybe it's simply the fact that Braswell chose to lead his dispersal with her. In the cattle business, you learn to read the subtle signals. When someone's dispersing their entire herd and they put one animal first, that tells you something. You feel your hand starting to rise almost involuntarily. You hadn't planned this. But standing here, watching this heifer, you're making a calculation that dairy farmers have made for generations, betting on potential, gambling on genetics, investing in tomorrow's production with today's scarce dollars. You need to understand who you are in this moment. John William Carlin, driving back to Kansas with that heifer in your trailer. Your hands on the steering wheel are calloused from morning milkings, but they've also held gavels in legislative chambers. You're living a double life that would break most people. Your mornings start at 4 a.m. on your 800-acre dairy operation outside of Saline. The familiar routine grounds you. The walk to the barn in darkness, the soft lowing of cows waiting to be milked, the steam rising from their backs in the cold morning air. You know each cow by her markings, her temperament, her production records that you keep meticulously in a notebook by the milk house. But by afternoon, you're in Topeka, serving in the Kansas House of Representatives. You were elected just last year, in 1970, at age 30. Your constituents don't fully understand how you manage both lives. They don't see you reading legislative briefs by the light of the milk house at 5 a.m. or taking calls about committee hearings while fixing a broken vacuum line. Your partnership with Lawrence Mayer makes this possible. You met Lawrence 5 years ago, and you recognized in him something invaluable: competence without ego. While you handle the breeding decisions and the politics, Lawrence handles the daily operations. I took care of the cattle, he says simply, but you both know it's more than that. He's the one who notices when a cow's off her feed, who can spot mastitis before it shows up in the tank, who remembers which cows need their feet trimmed. You're also a student of genetics, though your education came through experience rather than formal training. You graduated from Kansas State in 1962 with a degree in dairy science, but your real education came from watching your father's cows, from studying the daughters of different bulls, from learning to see the subtle differences that separate good from great. Your political career is ascending rapidly. In 6 years, you'll become Speaker of the Kansas House. In 8 years, you'll be elected governor. But right now, in 1971, driving with this heifer in your trailer, you're primarily a dairy farmer making a breeding decision that feels important, though you can't say exactly why. You think about the $1,500 you just spent. Not a fortune, but not nothing either. That's 3 months of milk checks from 5 good cows. It's the new bulk tank you've been putting off buying. It's the start of your oldest daughter's college fund. But something about this heifer feels like an investment in something bigger. You pull into your farmyard as the sun sets behind the barn. Lawrence comes out to help unload the heifer. He looks her over with his practiced eye, running his hands along her back, checking her legs, studying her udder development. He doesn't say much. Lawrence never does, but you catch him nodding slightly. That's approval, in Lawrence's language. You turn Cromell out into the heifer lot with the others. She moves well, confidently, despite being in a new place. You lean on the gate, watching her establish her place in the pecking order. The other heifers test her briefly, then accept her. Standing there, you think about the breeding decision ahead. She'll need to be bred soon. The choice of bull will matter immensely. You've been studying the Select Sires catalog, looking at the available options. The safe choice would be a proven bull with balanced traits. But you're not thinking safe. You're thinking about potential. You're thinking about the future. Your wife calls from the house. Dinner's ready. You take one last look at Cromell, now settled in with the other heifers, and head inside. Tomorrow you have committee hearings in Topeka. Next week, corn planting starts if the weather holds. The rhythm of your double life continues. But that heifer in your lot represents something more than just another addition to your herd. She's about to become the foundation of a genetic story that will ripple through the Holstein breed for generations. Her son, not yet conceived, not yet imagined, will become both the salvation and the curse of the global dairy industry. You just don't know it yet. You're standing in your barn on a mild April morning in 1973, and John Hecker from Select Sires is walking through your cows. You watch him work, noting how his eyes move systematically from legs to udder to body capacity. He's evaluated thousands of cows. His opinion matters more than you'd like to admit. Hecker stops at Cromell's stall. She's a 2-year-old now, freshened 6 months ago. She classified 84 points. Good, not great. Her production is solid, but not spectacular. You watch Hecker's face, trying to read his thoughts. His initial expression isn't encouraging. He runs his hands along her back, checks her udder attachment, studies her rear leg set. Then he asks to see her papers. You pull out the registration certificate, the production records, the pedigree that you've memorized. Her sire is Hilo Hillside Admiral, carrying Birkgov Inca DeCall breeding, relatively rare bloodlines. Her dam's side shows Dunlogan through Mountain Mead Dairyman. Hecker is doing genetic calculations in his head. The industry is drowning in chief and elevation sons. Everybody's using the same bulls, creating what geneticists call inbreeding depression, each generation getting a little less vigorous, a little less fertile, a little less profitable. The outcross genetics Cromell carries are becoming valuable, maybe more valuable than raw production numbers. But Hecker is hesitant. He points out the weaknesses. Her maternal line shows unclassified dams, modest production records. In an era before genomic testing, before DNA markers, before computer modeling, he has to make his decision based on what he can see and what the paper records suggest. It's art as much as science, intuition filtered through experience. You make your case carefully. You talk about her feed efficiency, how she produces well on basic rations without expensive supplements. You mention her trouble-free calving, how she bred back quickly. You point out her feet and legs, perfect angles, no trimming needed. These are the practical things that matter in commercial dairies, even if they don't win shows. Hecker proposes a deal that shows both his interest and his caution. Select Sires will contract a mating to Penn State Ivanhoe Star. If the resulting calf is a bull, Select Sires will purchase him, but only if Cromell can reclassify at 85 points or higher. 1 point. The difference between 84 and 85 seems arbitrary, but in the cattle business, such small distinctions determine fortunes. You shake on it, your dairy farmer's handshake, that means more than any written contract. After Hecker leaves, you stand with Cromell, running your own hands over her back, trying to see what he sees, trying to understand if you've just made a deal that matters or one that will be forgotten. The breeding takes place 2 months later. The AI technician arrives on a humid June morning. You've been watching Cremel's heat cycles, and she's ready. The breeding is routine. Thousands happen just like it every day across America. The technician is in and out in 5 minutes. But this particular joining of genetics, this moment when sperm meets egg, will reshape the entire dairy industry. Through the summer and fall of 1973, you watch Cremel carefully. Her body changes with pregnancy, the subtle widening, the fuller appearance. You increase her feed gradually. Lawrence checks on her every morning and evening, reporting any concerns. She carries the pregnancy easily, naturally, like the good brood cow she's proving to be. In December, the classifier comes for his annual visit. You've washed Cremel carefully, clipped her properly, set her up in the best possible light. The classifier is thorough, checking every aspect of her conformation. You hold your breath as he tallies his scorecard. 85 points. Exactly what you needed. Not a point more, but that's enough. The deal with Select Sires stands. On May 16, 1974, at 2:30 in the morning, Lawrence calls you from the barn. Cremel is in labor. You pull on your coveralls and boots, grab the calving kit, and hurry through the darkness. The delivery is straightforward. Cremel is an easy calver, another valuable trait. The calf slides out, covered in fluid, and you clear his airways, stimulate his breathing. It's a bull calf. Strong, vigorous, on his feet within minutes, searching for the udder. You and Lawrence stand there in the yellow light of the barn's single bulb, watching this new life take his first meal. You've decided to name him Carlin-M Ivanhoe Bell. The bell comes from your prefix, but also because something about this calf makes you think of clarity, of something ringing true. Within weeks, a Select Sires truck arrives to take him to their facility in Plain City, Ohio. As you watch the trailer disappear down your drive, you feel a mixture of pride and loss. Every dairy farmer who's sold a good bull calf knows this feeling. You're sending potential away, trusting others to develop what you've created. You hope you've made the right choice. You hope he amounts to something. You have no idea that you've just sent away a bull who will generate over 500,000 registered daughters, reshape global Holstein genetics, and carry within his DNA both remarkable gifts and terrible curses that won't be discovered for 25 years. While young Bell grows at the Select Sires facility, you need to understand what's happening across the American dairy industry in the mid-1970s. You're living through a revolution that's moving so fast, most farmers don't have time to comprehend its full scope. You hear it on the radio while milking. Another 100 small dairies have gone out of business this month. The survivors are growing larger, more specialized, more dependent on technology and genetics. The family farms that dotted every rural road are consolidating into operations with hundreds, even thousands of cows. In Wisconsin, you watch your fellow dairy farmers installing new pipeline milking systems, building freestall barns, switching from pasture to total mixed rations. The cows never see grass anymore. They live their entire lives on concrete, bred for production rather than longevity. The old-timers shake their heads, but the young farmers understand this is survival. The pressure comes from all sides. Inflation is eating into profits. What cost $1 in 1970 costs $1.40 now. Feed prices spike with every drought, every flood, every international crisis. The milk price support system offers some stability, but everyone knows it's political, subject to change with each election. You attend a breeding conference in Madison where the talk is all about linear evaluation, computerized mating programs, and something called total merit indexes. The geneticists speak of heritability coefficients and genetic correlations. They show slides of bell curves and regression analyses. It's a long way from your grandfather's method of keeping the best heifer from his best cow, but there's an undercurrent of concern among the scientists that doesn't make it into the sales catalogs. The Holstein breed is narrowing. A handful of bulls dominate the pedigrees. Round oak rag apple elevation appears everywhere, if not as a sire, then as a grandsire or great-grandsire. The genetic diversity that took centuries to develop is being concentrated into fewer and fewer bloodlines. You hear whispers about something called inbreeding depression, lower fertility, higher calf mortality, mysterious health problems that seem to come from nowhere. But these concerns are drowned out by production statistics. When a bull can add 2,000 pounds of milk per lactation, who cares if his daughters are a little less fertile? You'll make up the difference in the bulk tank. At Select Sire's headquarters, young Bell is evaluated daily. The technicians notice his exceptional libido, his high sperm concentration, his semen's ability to survive freezing. These are the unglamorous but essential traits that determine whether a bull succeeds in AI. You can have the best genetics in the world, but if the semen won't freeze or the bull won't collect, you have nothing. Bell's early proof looks promising. His first daughters are milking in Pennsylvania, Ohio, New York. The reports coming back are consistent. Exceptional production, good feet and legs, trouble-free calvings. But also concerning notes about stature, about strength, about udder attachment. The evaluators are divided. Is he a specialist bull for commercial dairies, or could he be something more? You're not privy to these discussions back on your Kansas farm. You're dealing with your own challenges. An outbreak of mastitis that's raising your somatic cell counts, a helper who quit without notice, corn that's not growing well in the drought. You check the Select Sire's catalog when it arrives, looking for Bell's listing, but he's not there yet. Too early, too unproven. But in the AI industry, decisions are being made. Select Sires needs to differentiate itself from the competition. They need a bull that offers something different, something that will make dairy farmers take notice. Bell, with his outcross pedigree and his early production reports, fits that need. They decide to market him aggressively as an outcross alternative to the chief elevation bloodlines dominating the breed. It's a calculated risk. If his daughters perform, Select Sires will have a winner. If they don't, Bell will join the thousands of bulls who wash out of AI every year, their semen dumped, their potential unrealized. The stage is set for Bell to either revolutionize the dairy industry or disappear into obscurity. There will be no middle ground. You're standing in a commercial dairy outside Turlock, California in 1982, and you're watching something unprecedented. The Bell daughters are coming into the milking parlor, and the meters on the pipeline are spinning like you've never seen. These aren't your grandfather's Holsteins producing 40 pounds a day. These cows are pushing 70, 80, even 90 pounds of milk per day at peak. The herd manager shows you his DHIA records, his finger trailing down the columns of numbers. Bell daughter after Bell daughter, all with plus signs next to their deviation from herd average. The math is simple and compelling. Each Bell daughter is generating an extra $400 per year in milk income. With feed costs what they are, that's the difference between profit and bankruptcy. But you notice something else as you walk through the free stalls. These aren't the big, strong, deep-bodied cows that win shows at World Dairy Expo. The Bell daughters are smaller, finer-boned, almost delicate-looking. They have a nervous energy, an intensity that seems to vibrate through their bodies. They're either eating or milking. There's no standing around, no wasted motion. You talk to other farmers, and the stories are remarkably consistent. In Wisconsin, a dairyman tells you his Bell daughters came into milk like freight trains, explosive production from day one of lactation. In New York, a producer mentions how easy they calve, how rarely he needs to assist. In Pennsylvania, you hear about their feet and legs. No trimming needed, no lameness issues despite walking on concrete. But there's another conversation happening, quieter, among the registered breeders who show cattle and sell breeding stock. You attend a twilight meeting at the local Breeders Association, and the mood is different. These are the people who care about more than just milk checks. They're building cattle for the future, for the show ring, for the elite sales. An older breeder, someone whose family has been breeding Holsteins for 4 generations, describes Bell with barely concealed disdain. He uses the phrase that will stick, like a drunken guest at a house party. Powerful, yes, but also crude, unrefined, lacking the elegance and balance that defines a truly great Holstein. The room divides immediately. The commercial producers argue that milk pays the bills, that structural perfection doesn't matter if the cow doesn't produce. The purist breeders counter that short-term production gains mean nothing if you're destroying the breed's long-term viability. You find yourself caught in the middle, understanding both sides. Your own farm needs the income that high production brings. But you also understand breeding cattle is about more than this generation. It's about creating genetic progress that will benefit your children, your grandchildren. By 1984, Bell is everywhere. His semen is selling faster than select sires can collect it. Every AI company wants their own Bell, a bull that combines high production with enough type traits to be commercially viable. Young sire programs are sampling every Bell son they can find, hoping to capture his production power while correcting his flaws. You visit the Select Sires facility in Ohio for a producer meeting. They bring Bell out for viewing. He's 10 years old now, still vigorous, still collecting well. He's not an impressive individual, medium-sized, plain, nothing about his physical appearance that would suggest his genetic power. But watching him, you understand that greatness in genetics doesn't always look like greatness in the flesh. The Select Sires geneticist gives a presentation on Bell's proof. The numbers are staggering. He's already sired over 32,000 daughters in 8,221 herds. His predicted difference for milk has stabilized at plus 1,704 pounds, but the type proofs are concerning. Miney's 4.32 for overall type, Miney 4.59 for stature, 4.31 for strength. The udder composite is particularly troubling at 90's 4.72. Someone asks about longevity, and the room gets quiet. The data is preliminary, but Bell daughters seem to leave herds earlier than average. They milk like crazy for 2 lactations, then struggle to maintain body condition, struggle to breed back, struggle to stay healthy. The average productive life is running about 2.2 years less than their herd mates. But here's the thing. You and every other dairy farmer in that room understands. 2.2 years of lost production is a problem for tomorrow. The milk check comes next month. With margins as tight as they are, with interest rates at 15%, with feed costs climbing, you need production now. Tomorrow's problems will have to be tomorrow's solutions. You drive home from Ohio with 50 units of Bell semen in your tank. You've already identified which cows to breed to him. Your tallest, strongest, deepest-bodied cows, hoping their size and strength will compensate for his weaknesses. It's a calculated risk, but then everything in dairy farming is a calculated risk. Back on your farm, you breed 3 of your best cows to Bell that spring. The breedings all take on first service, another Bell trait. His daughters seem to settle easily. You mark your calendar, counting forward 280 days. By February, you'll have Bell calves on the ground. You don't know it, but at this very moment, in research laboratories in Denmark and Canada, scientists are beginning to notice unusual patterns in calf mortality. Calves that die mysteriously with malformed vertebrae with immune systems that don't function. The researchers are starting to trace pedigrees, looking for common ancestors. They keep finding the same name, Carlin-M Ivanhoe Bell. You need to understand what it's like to stand in the collection barn at Select Sires, watching Bell work. It's 1985, he's 11 years old, and he's the most valuable bull they own. Every collection is worth thousands of dollars. Every unit of semen represents potential income for the cooperative and its farmer members. The collection process is methodical, almost ritualistic. Bell is led into the barn by handlers who know his every mood, his every preference. He's not a difficult bull, another valuable trait, but he has his routines. He likes to circle the mounting dummy twice before collecting. He performs better in the morning than the afternoon. Small details that matter when you're dealing with genetics worth millions. You watch his eyes as he works. There's an intensity there, a focus that reminds you of his daughters in the milking parlor. It's anthropomorphic, you know, to assign consciousness to a bull's genetic influence. But standing here, you can't shake the feeling that Bell somehow knows his importance. The technicians tell you about Bell's semen quality: exceptional concentration, superior post-thaw motility, consistent performance across different extenders. These aren't things that show up in genetic evaluations, but they're crucial for AI success. A bull can have the best genetics in the world, but if his semen doesn't survive the freezing process, he's worthless for artificial insemination. You think about the peculiar intimacy of artificial insemination, how this bull's genetics will enter thousands of cows he'll never meet, in places he'll never see. His daughters will milk in barns from New Zealand to Norway, from Israel to Ireland. His genetic influence will ripple through generations, through decades, through bloodlines that haven't even been established yet. After the collection, you're invited to the genetic evaluation office. The walls are covered with charts, graphs, bell curves showing the distribution of genetic merit across the population. Bell occupies the extreme right tail for production, the extreme left tail for type. He's literally pulling the breed in opposite directions simultaneously. The geneticist, a young PhD from Cornell, explains the concept of genetic correlations. Some traits naturally go together. Cows with high production tend to have higher feed intake, for example, but other correlations are negative. As you select for production, you often lose stature, strength, and longevity. It's not intentional, it's built into the biology. Bell embodies these contradictions more extremely than any bull in history. His production transmission is phenomenal, but it comes packaged with systematic weaknesses that can't be separated out. You can't get Bell's milk without Bell's problems. It's a package deal. You ask about the rumors you've been hearing, unusual calf losses, strange mortality patterns. The geneticist's expression changes, becomes guarded. They're investigating, he says carefully. There might be some kind of recessive condition, but it's too early to say. They need more data, more cases, more time. Standing there, you realize Bell has become bigger than himself. He's no longer just a bull, he's a symbol of the choices the dairy industry is making. The pursuit of production at any cost. The willingness to accept short-term gain despite long-term risk. The faith that science and management can overcome biological limitations. You think about your own farm, your own Bell daughters now entering the milking herd. They're everything promised. Rivers of milk, easy calvings, good feet and legs. But you've also noticed things not in the sale catalogs. They're nervous, almost neurotic. They lose condition quickly if anything disrupts their routine. They seem fragile despite their tremendous output, like engines running too hot. The facility manager joins you for lunch in the company cafeteria. He's been in the AI business for 30 years, has seen bulls come and go, fads rise and fall. You ask him directly, is Bell good for the breed or bad? He's quiet for a long moment, stirring his coffee. Then he says something that stays with you. Every generation gets the bull it deserves. Bell is what the industry asked for. Maximum production, right now, consequences be damned. We got exactly what we wanted. The question is whether we wanted the right thing. Driving home from Ohio, you think about his words. You think about the choices you're making on your own farm, the pressures you face, the trade-offs you accept. You're part of a system bigger than yourself, driven by forces beyond your control, milk prices, feed costs, consumer demands, global markets. Bell is both a cause and effect of these forces. He didn't create the demand for extreme production, but he enabled it. He didn't force anyone to use him, but his availability made it harder to resist. He's the embodiment of industrial dairy farming's promise and peril, unprecedented productivity shadowed by unprecedented risk. Your farm appears in the distance, the familiar outline of barns and silos against the evening sky. Your Bell daughters are waiting to be milked, their udders full, their genetic programming driving them to produce more milk than nature ever intended. You pull into your driveway, already calculating tomorrow's breeding decisions. You're reading the Holstein World in your farm office on a cold January morning in 1987, and there it is in black and white. Bell now appears in over 30% of the Holstein locator list. One bull. 3 out of every 10 elite Holsteins in America carry his genetics. The concentration is unprecedented, dangerous, but the industry can't seem to stop itself. You get a call from your neighbor who's been using Bell heavily. His voice carries a worry you haven't heard before. He's losing calves, not just 1 or 2, but a pattern. Calves that seem fine at birth, then fade and die within days. The vet can't explain it. The nutritionist has no answers. The calves just die. You walk through your own calf barn that afternoon, checking each hutch. Your Bell calves seem healthy, vigorous, but now you're looking for something you can't quite name. some sign, some warning. You think about genetic recessives, how they hide for generations until two carriers mate. With Bell's genetics spreading like wildfire, the chances of carrier-to-carrier matings are increasing exponentially. Spring 1988. You're at a production sale in Madison watching Bell daughters sell. The prices are astronomical, $15,000, $20,000, even $30,000 for the best ones. Buyers from Japan, Italy, Germany, all competing. Bell genetics have become global. What started in a Kansas breeding decision is now reshaping dairy herds on 6 continents. But between the lots, in hushed conversations by the sale ring, you hear the concerns growing louder. Dairy farmers from Denmark mention strange calf losses. A veterinarian from Canada describes calves with malformed spines. A geneticist from the University of Guelph uses the term genetic load, the accumulation of deleterious genes that comes with intense selection. You bid on a Bell daughter yourself. She's out of one of your best cows, and her production proof is outstanding. You win her for $8,500, more than you've ever paid for a cow. Driving her home, you wonder if you're buying the future or mortgaging it. Summer 1989. The heat is oppressive, and your Bell daughters are struggling more than your other cows. They can't handle stress, heat, crowding, feed changes. They're like Formula One race cars. Incredible performance under perfect conditions, but fragile when anything goes wrong. You install extra fans, add more shade, adjust rations. You're managing around their weaknesses, spending money to support production that's supposed to be making you money. December 31st, 1989. Bell dies at Select Sires. 15 years old, not particularly old for a bull, but his job is done. He's produced millions of units of semen, enough to last decades. The obituary in the trade magazines is glowing, focusing on his production transmission, his impact on the breed. The concerns, the whispers about problems, are mentioned only in passing. January 1990. You're doing your yearly genetic audit, looking at your herd's pedigrees. Bell appears everywhere, as sire, grandsire, great-grandsire. Sometimes he appears multiple times in the same pedigree, what geneticists call line breeding. You've concentrated his genetics, intensified both his strengths and his weaknesses. You calculate that 67% of your herd now carries Bell genetics. It seemed like smart breeding at the time, using the bull that added the most milk, the most income. But now, looking at these pedigrees, you feel a chill that has nothing to do with the January cold. You've put all your genetic eggs in one basket, and you don't even know if the basket has a bottom. The phone rings. It's your veterinarian. He's just returned from a conference where researchers presented preliminary findings about something they're calling complex vertebral malformation, CVM. It's a lethal recessive, causing horrible spinal deformities in calves. They've traced it back to a common ancestor. Your stomach drops before he even says the name. Carlin-M Ivanhoe Bell. You're standing in your office, and the fax machine won't stop printing. Page after page of scientific data, genetic analysis, confirmation of what the industry has feared but refused to acknowledge. The Danish researchers have proven it definitively. Bell is the source of CVM. Every single case traces back to him. The mathematics are devastating. Bell is a carrier, which means 50% of his offspring are carriers too. When two carriers mate, there's a 25% chance the calf will be affected, born dead or dying shortly after birth with grotesque spinal malformations. With Bell appearing multiple times in many pedigrees, the actual risk is even higher. But CVM isn't the only problem. The researchers have also confirmed Bell carries BLAD, bovine leukocyte adhesion deficiency, another lethal recessive that destroys the immune system. Calves with BLAD can't fight infection. They die slowly, painfully, despite all treatment attempts. You pull out your breeding records, cross-referencing with the carrier lists now being published. Your hands shake slightly as you work through the calculations. Of your 200 cows, 140 carry Bell genetics. If the 50% carrier rate holds true, you have 70 cows that could be carrying these lethal genes. Every breeding decision you make from now on carries a Russian roulette element. Breed a carrier to a carrier and you might get a dead calf. But these are your best cows, your highest producers. Not breeding them means economic suicide. Breeding them means genetic Russian roulette, The phone rings constantly. Other farmers, all asking the same questions. What do we do? How did this happen? Why didn't anyone warn us? You don't have answers. Nobody does. The industry that prides itself on scientific advancement, on genetic progress, has been blindsided by basic biology. You attend an emergency meeting at the county extension office. The room is packed, standing room only. Dairy farmers who normally compete are united in crisis. The extension agent tries to explain the science, but everyone already understands the bottom line. Bell's genetics are everywhere, and they're poisoned. An older dairyman stands up, his voice cracking with emotion. He's lost 12 calves in the past year. Now he knows why. His entire breeding program, built around Bell genetics for 15 years, is contaminated. The room falls silent as he breaks down. This tough farmer, who's weathered droughts and market crashes, reduced to tears by microscopic DNA. The AI industry representatives present their response: new testing protocols, carrier designations on all bulls, guidelines for avoiding carrier-to-carrier matings. It's comprehensive, thorough, and at least 10 years too late. The damage is done. Bell's genetics are embedded in the global Holstein population like shrapnel that can't be removed. You drive home in the gathering darkness, your mind racing through calculations. The immediate economic impact is clear: dead calves, lost pregnancies, culled cows. But the long-term impact is worse. You can't use your best bulls because they're Bell descendants and carriers. You can't sell breeding stock internationally because other countries are blocking carrier animals. You can't even make breeding decisions without consulting carrier lists and calculating probabilities. In your barn, you stand looking at your cows. They don't know they're carrying genetic time bombs. They just do what they've been bred to do: produce milk. Massive amounts of milk. Bell's great gift and curse combined in every cell of their bodies. Your best cow, the one you've built your breeding program around, is a Bell granddaughter. She's given you 15,000 gallons of milk, 12 healthy calves, countless profits. Now, you know she's almost certainly a carrier. Every breeding decision with her and her daughters is complicated, compromised. You think about John Carlin, who made that purchase in 1971, who shook hands on that breeding in 1973. Did he have any idea what he was setting in motion? Could anyone have predicted that one bull would reshape and then nearly break an entire industry? The paradox is complete. Bell gave the industry exactly what it asked for: maximum production, maximum profit, maximum efficiency. But he also gave it maximum risk, maximum concentration, maximum vulnerability. The industry got the bull it deserved, as that Select Sires manager said years ago. Standing in your barn, surrounded by Bell's legacy, you understand that there's no going back. You can't remove Bell's genetics from your herd, from the breed, from the industry. You can only manage the consequences, breed more carefully, test more thoroughly. The revolution Bell started can't be stopped, only directed. You're sitting in a mandatory genetic counseling session in 2001, and the facilitator is explaining how to read the new carrier codes: BY for Blad carrier, CV for CVM carrier. The simple two-letter codes that now determine breeding decisions, sale prices, export eligibility. Every bull in the AI catalogs now has these designations. Bell's legacy reduced to abbreviations. The economic impact rolls through the industry like a slow-motion avalanche. International markets that were paying premium prices for American genetics suddenly impose restrictions. No carriers allowed. Your neighbor, who built his business on selling breeding stock to Europe, watches his market evaporate overnight. You attend World Dairy Expo in 2002, and the change is palpable. The Bell daughters that once dominated the show ring are disappearing. Breeders are pivoting to other bloodlines, trying to distance themselves from Bell genetics. But it's like trying to remove flour from bread. Bell is baked into everything. At the Breed Association meeting, they present statistics that make your head spin. Testing shows 14% of Holstein bulls are Blad carriers. 23% are CVM carriers. Some elite bulls are carriers of both. The genetic bottleneck everyone warned about has become a noose. You implement new protocols on your farm. Every animal is tested. Every breeding is planned with carrier status in mind. The computer software that manages your breeding program now includes carrier probability calculations. What used to be simple, breed your best to the best has become a complex matrix of risk management. The costs add up quickly. Testing fees, $35 per animal. Lost calves from carrier-to-carrier matings you couldn't avoid, $800 each. Reduced sale prices for carrier animals, 30% discount minimum. The extraordinary milk production Bell provided is being paid for in installments you never agreed to. 2003 brings a new blow. Researchers identify another genetic defect spreading through Holstein populations, brachyspina, causing stillborn calves with shortened spines. While not directly from Bell, it's found in many of his descendants. The pattern is becoming clear. The intense selection and line breeding on popular sires like Bell has concentrated not just beneficial genes, but harmful ones too. You talk to your veterinarian during herd check, and he shares something that chills you. He's seeing more of everything. More metabolic disorders, more fertility problems, more immune system failures. The Holstein cow has become so specialized for production that she's lost resilience. Bell didn't cause all of this, but he accelerated it, concentrated it, made it unavoidable. Your daughter comes home from agricultural college in 2004, full of ideas about genomic selection, marker-assisted breeding, new technologies that will prevent another Bell situation. You listen to her enthusiasm, but you've become skeptical. Every generation thinks it has the answer, that its technology will overcome biology's basic rules. Bell was supposed to be the answer too. She pulls up data on her laptop showing how genomic testing can identify carriers before they're even born, how DNA markers can predict production without waiting for daughter proofs. It's impressive, revolutionary even. But you notice the industry is still selecting for the same thing, maximum production. The tools are better, but the goal hasn't changed. By 2005, you've adapted to the new reality. Carrier status is just another factor in breeding decisions, like milk production or type scores. The industry has developed protocols, workarounds, management strategies. The crisis has become chronic condition. But the numbers tell a stark story. The average productive life of Holstein cows continues to decline. Conception rates drop year after year. The number of lactations per cow shrinks. The industry is producing more milk than ever, but the cows producing it are burning out faster, breaking down sooner. You stand in your barn one evening, watching your cows. They're Bell's daughters, granddaughters, great-granddaughters. They carry his gift and his curse in every cell. They're marvels of genetic selection and victims of it. They produce milk like machines because that's what we bred them to be. But machines break down, and these machines are breaking down faster than ever. The question that keeps you awake at night: what are we doing to these animals in pursuit of ever more production? And what is it doing to us? You're standing in a state-of-the-art dairy facility in 2024, watching robotic milkers work with perfect precision. The cows wear electronic collars that track every movement, every bite of feed, every minute of rest. Computers analyze the data in real time, adjusting rations, predicting health issues, maximizing efficiency. The herd manager shows you their genetic profile on a tablet. Bell still appears in every pedigree, sometimes multiple times. His influence has become so ubiquitous that geneticists don't even track it anymore. It's assumed. Like oxygen in the air, Bell's genetics are everywhere, invisible but essential. Modern genomic testing has revolutionized breeding since Bell's time. Today, you can test a calf at birth and know its genetic merit for dozens of traits. You can identify carriers of genetic defects before they're bred. You can predict with stunning accuracy how much milk a cow will produce before she ever enters a milking parlor. But the fundamental tension Bell embodied remains unchanged. The industry still selects primarily for production. The average Holstein now produces over 25,000 pounds of milk per year, double what Bell's daughters achieved. But she also lives fewer lactations, requires more management, costs more to maintain. You attend a genetics conference where the speaker presents a sobering statistic. The effective population size of Holsteins, a measure of genetic diversity, has shrunk to fewer than 100 individuals. That means the millions of Holsteins worldwide have the genetic diversity of only 100 unrelated animals. Bell didn't cause this alone, but he accelerated it dramatically. The young geneticists talk about new solutions: gene editing, crossbreeding with other dairy breeds, selection indexes that balance production with health and longevity. They're confident, optimistic, certain they can solve the problems previous generations created. You've heard this before. What they don't fully grasp, what you've learned over decades, is that every genetic decision has consequences that won't be apparent for years, sometimes decades. Bell looked like pure success for 15 years before his genetic defects surfaced. What time bombs are hiding in today's popular sires? What will the industry discover in 2040 about decisions being made today? The irony is profound. Bell succeeded too well. His production genetics were so superior that the industry couldn't resist using him, even after the defects were discovered. He proved that extreme genetic merit in one trait could override all other considerations. The market wanted milk, and Bell delivered milk. Everything else was secondary. Today's genomic bulls are Bell's philosophical descendants. They promise even more extreme production, even faster genetic progress. The technology is infinitely better, but the underlying dynamic is the same: the pursuit of maximum output from biological systems that have inherent limits. Standing in this modern facility, you see Bell's ghost in every cow, every genetic evaluation, every breeding decision. He's in the software that calculates matings, in the semen tanks storing tomorrow's genetics, in the fundamental assumption that more production is always better. The question Bell forces us to ask, are we breeding better cows or just more productive ones, remains unanswered. Perhaps unanswerable. You stand in your milking parlor this morning in 2025, 51 years after Bell was born, 35 years after he died. The cows moving through the parlor are his descendants, carrying his genetics diluted but never absent. Every cow in America, really every Holstein in the world, carries some fraction of Bell's DNA. The morning routine is familiar but different from decades past. Computers monitor each cow's production in real time. Automatic takeoffs remove milking units at precisely the right moment. The milk flows through stainless steel pipes to a bulk tank that holds what your grandfather's entire herd produced in a month. You think about the cycles of history, how each generation believes it's different, smarter, better equipped than the one before. The young farmers today talk about sustainability, about cow comfort, about longevity, as if these are new ideas rather than old wisdom we forgot in the pursuit of production. Bell taught the industry humility, or should have. He proved that genetic progress is never free, that biological systems have breaking points, that what looks like success can carry the seeds of crisis. But memories are short, especially when profits are involved. You check your breeding list for today. 3 cows to breed, all Bell descendants, of course. The sires you're using are genomic tested, carrier status verified, genetic merit evaluated for dozens of traits. The technology would seem like magic to farmers from Bell's era. But the fundamental question remains unchanged. What kind of cow do we want? What values do we embed in genetic selection? What trade-offs are we willing to accept? Outside, the sun rises over fields that have been in your family for generations. The same sun that rose over John Carlin's farm in Kansas, over that auction barn in Oklahoma, over 50 years of breeding decisions that led to this moment. Bell's paradox is now our permanent inheritance. The knowledge that maximum production comes with maximum risk, that genetic concentration creates vulnerability, that every breeding decision echoes through generations. We can't unknow what Bell taught us. We can only decide whether to learn from it. Your phone buzzes with a text from the AI technician. He'll be here in an hour. Time to make breeding decisions. Time to balance production against longevity, profit against sustainability, present needs against future consequences. Time to live with Bell's ghost, which is really the ghost of our own choices, reflected back to us in every cow we milk, every calf we raise, every genetic decision we make. The paradox continues, the questions remain. The cows keep producing, and somewhere in a tank of liquid nitrogen, frozen in time and potential, wait the genetics of the next Bell, the next bull who will promise everything, deliver more than expected, and cost more than anyone imagined. We'll use him anyway. We always do. Because that's the nature of progress in agriculture. Always forward, never fully counting the cost until the bill comes due.
You've been listening to the Bullvine Podcast, and this has been Bell's Paradox, the worst, best bull in Holstein history. Bell's story isn't just about one bull or one breeding decision made 50 years ago. It's about the eternal tension in agriculture between progress and sustainability, between profit and principle, between what we can do and what we should do. Every time you make a breeding decision, every time you look at a genomic evaluation, every time you balance production against longevity, you're living with Bell's legacy. The questions he forces us to ask have no easy answers, but asking them might be the most important thing we do. The Bullvine podcast is produced for dairy farmers who understand that our industry's stories aren't just about cows and milk. They're about people, choices, consequences, and the future we're creating, one breeding at a time. If this story resonated with you, share it with another dairy farmer who needs to hear it. Visit thebullvine.com for more articles, resources, and perspectives that challenge conventional thinking in dairy farming. And remember, in dairy farming, as in life, the most powerful lessons often come from our biggest mistakes. The trick is learning from them before the bill comes due. Until next time, keep questioning, keep learning, and keep pushing for better, not just more. This is the Bullvine Podcast. Thank you for listening.
This is the Bullvine. Turn the volume high for the icons of the ages that never will die. From the showing thunder to the quiet strength they knew. Hear their stories now, coming right on through.